One of our RevitalLab coaches had this question about a politicized organization, and I want to read it here for you for our consideration today. Sometimes with leaders, I feel like looking good outweighs anything else, that it outweighs being authentic or truly effective. Sometimes they have the pressure to look good. The data leaders collect is not tied to bottom line results. The information they collect is anything they can find to make themselves look good. Do you have any words of wisdom for the leaders who are caught up in this looking good, politicized environment? Just to make sure that we're on the same page, I'm going to define what a politicized environment is, and it's pretty much what we commonly think of. To act in a certain way based on cultural pressures to do so, which cause you to curate the impression you're making on others, to stay in the good graces of certain people in the culture, to pay more attention to shaping your image in the organization than to carry out the purpose of the organization. A non-politicized environment is when people feel free to say what they think, feel, and want, and when they give feedback, they don't think that there's going to be retribution for it, which allows them to focus on the purpose of what they were there in the first place to accomplish in the organization. Now, this coach's question describes one kind of politicized environment, and there are actually two kinds, and I want to talk about those today. What differentiates them is who is driving the culture to be so politicized. One, is it your client, the leader you're working with? Or two, is your client describing the political environment of the whole organization? Your approach to your client depends on knowing where the source of the pressure to play the game is coming from. If the source is your client and how they are driving their team to act politically rather than authentically, then your job is to help that leader see the effects of their behavior and support them and their team to have straight and direct conversations with each other. There is a video in the Presence passage of RevitalLab that already addresses this. It's called Help a Defensive Leader Receive Feedback. The second situation is when, as our RevitalLab coach said, people get caught up in some dynamic where it seems like they almost sell themselves out. And there are costs to doing that. It sucks out your soul. And that describes a highly politicized organization, when appearance or whom you are connected to is more important than the products you produce or bringing a presence that would actually transform the team. That's a politicized organization. And to break out of that is no easy task, because you can become scapegoated for doing something different. So the two worst-case scenarios are either play the game and have a soul-sucking experience, or you may become an outcast. If you don't play the game, you can be seen as incredibly foolish. You can be seen as a low-power person because you're not playing the game. Come on, get in the game. It's like showing up at a black-tie cocktail party in shorts. People's reactions, whether they tell you or not, mostly they don't say it to your face, is, "What are you doing?" I'm saying this because I want to honor the risks that people are taking when they are in an organization that's politicized and they want to change their experience and therefore how they're going to act in that organization. So when that's the case, here's what I'll ask the leader. What shift in the culture of your team do you want to make? The second question, immediately after the first question, is, what do you have control over that if there's something you want to change, you could change it in your part of your organization? They have to be thoughtful in how they answer this question. They can't just say, anything I do in my division will be fine, so I can make the change I just said I want to make. Well, not if the change they want to make is depoliticizing their area. Not if they are thinking of acting in a completely different way from the rest of the culture, because their boss and their peers are going to say, "What are you doing over there?" It's a very real question, and I honor their answer, because I'm not the one taking the risk. They're the one taking the risk. So I don't push people any farther than they want to go. Just because it might be a better organization, it wouldn't be so soul-sucking, or there wouldn't be so much high turnover or any other downsides if they were to do something differently, I'm not downplaying the risks just for a brighter upside, because again, they're the one taking the risks. So it's really important to ask the leader, Truly, what do you have the power to change, if anything, around the culture of how you would interact within your team, with your peers, and with your boss? The third question is, can you get sponsorship from your boss for the cultural change you want to make in your organization? That is not an easy question because the boss may be playing the look good game better than anybody else on that leadership team. It can be a risk even to have that conversation. So even though it's smart to be sponsored by your boss before you go off and put into place a vision of what you want to do, especially when it's about depoliticizing the environment, your client needs to think about, can I talk to my boss about this? A fourth question has to do with taking a radical goal like culture change and transforming it into doable, incremental changes. This doesn't mean it's going to take forever. It just means being smart about how to approach the culture change itself. What change can you make about how you want to conduct yourself and how you want your own team to conduct themselves, where you could start with specific behavioral shifts? What are the astute, significant shifts over time that you want to make? What specifically do you see yourself doing differently? How do you want the team to act differently? And the fifth question is, how would you connect these cultural changes in behavior to very specific business results you need to achieve? This is the only way it worked. And to give you an example, I was on a consultant team of 2 consultants, and we were working with a new leader who was given a division in the company which was the worst performing division. The new leader wanted to change the environment because it was so toxic, and besides people wanting to just look good, there was a lot of bullying going on. So this leader was really smart to make any changes in behavior and or culture completely tied to business results. In fact, it was this organization where I developed the whole notion of the leadership vision, where leaders outline up front the connection between very specific behavior changes they want to see and how that will lead to the bottom line results they need to get. This leader also made sure to include his strategic team, which was his leadership team and representatives of the production workers in the division. He made sure that any required change of behavior was directly tied to results that were doable on the ground, not just theoretically good ideas. Even with this careful thinking on the front end, the leader was moving against such strong homeostasis that on the front end of it, everyone in the division thought, we're going to chew up this leader and spit him out. We don't have to do anything he wants us to do. That's the way they looked at this leader. And if you saw this leader, you might have wondered if maybe he was outmatched by this team. He was the most unassuming person. There was nothing appearance or energy-wise that was charismatic about him. There was nothing looking good or politicized about him either. But he taught me a lot about what it's like to lead with backbone and heart. He was always very clear, very direct, and didn't pull any punches. He did not have people participate as a way to manipulate them. Instead, he brought heart. He had a lot of participation from people when he was open to being influenced. He truly listened to what they thought and what they cared about. So he kept them close to him and connected to him as he made new demands on them that were connected to getting better business results. And he acted very incrementally. Over the course of 10 to 12 months, this leader created such a significant and inspiring change in the culture, from politicized to authentic, with everyone pulling in the same direction. And as it turned out, his division became one of the top performers in the company. This was so dramatic a change that corporate headquarters sent out an auditor because they thought that this leader and his leadership team were cooking the books. Corporate headquarters thought, there is no way you can maintain this level of success. You're hiding something. But by the end of the audit, the auditor said, nope, they aren't hiding anything. They actually are performing really well. What was so unexpectedly wonderful was that this leader's boss became interested in how our client pulled this off. So we wound up working with our client's boss's leadership team. And that's how the culture was changed in that highly politicized bullying environment. The courage of that one leader to work patiently and doggedly, tying culture change to results, and staying connected to the people from whom he was insisting on a change. I'll mention quickly here that in terms of staying connected to their team in the midst of a culture shift, here are 3 actions a leader can do to advance progress on the shift while they build strong connections to their team. Publicly acknowledge people who take the risk and demonstrate the new expected behaviors. Help the team code switch their language with the larger organization. That is, learn to be bilingual, speaking new culture language inside their team, and remaining able to speak to the rest of the organization in a way that doesn't alienate them. Build a practice of getting alignment that allows people to express their reactions, concerns, and reservations as they work their way toward committing to the new goals. So you can see that depoliticizing a work environment takes a lot of dedication and a willingness to face resistance with equanimity and grace. It's not for the faint of heart. But if a leader chooses to do this, it's definitely a backbone and heart-building adventure.